here long. Step 3 and step 4 are pretty short, but I do want to take some time to go through them so that you can really understand what you're doing when you embark on these 2 steps that are left in cycle 1. And even before we do that, I hope everyone is doing well and moving forward with getting this work completed. And I tell you, if you really just sort of take this step by step, it becomes very bite-sized, very easy, and you'll be ready to submit on November 18th, okay? And another thing, once you register, make your payment and register on CTC's website, you have a year to complete, whatever you're loading in. So you can, at any point, you can just sort of get that part taken care of and then just go from there. All right, so what I'm going to do is start with step 3, and to really help you understand step 3 or to really get into it, I'm going to first read the essential question out. And then after I read the essential question, then I'm going to go over level 3 of the rubric. And that's the only level we're concerned about. We're not concerned about 1 or 2. We're staying right in the middle, and we hope that our work will take us up to 4 or 5. But 3 is acceptable, gets you in, and that's all we're concerned with. So our essential question for step 3, and I'm gonna read it slow, and I'll keep going over it until we get it, glued in, and then I'll read through level 3. So the essential question is, how does the candidate reflect on citing evidence from step 1 and step 2? So pretty much you step 1 and step 2, they're going to want you to reflect back on those and give some evidence that sort of helps them understand how you got going with what you have. Okay, if that makes any sense. Okay, so how does the candidate reflect on citing evidence from step 1 and 2 on the impact of their assets and needs-based lesson planning, teaching, and informal assessment of students' learning, and analyze how effective the lesson was in supporting the whole class and the 3 focus students in meeting the content-specific learning goals, and if applicable, the ELD goals. So they want you to reflect on the impact of your students' assets and how did that, help you move the student forward, basically, in a nutshell. And the level 3 rubric, okay, it reads, the candidate clearly reflects on how their understanding of the assets and needs of their students impacted the ways in which the lesson supported student learning. So how did understanding everything about your students impact how your lesson came out? Okay. And if you can clearly articulate that, then you're doing real well. So the second part of level 3 is the candidate analyzes how effective the lesson was or was not in supporting the whole class and the 3 focus students in meeting the content-specific learning goals and, if applicable, the ELD goals. And I'll tell you one thing, in this level 3, when you talk about the whole class, and when you talk about the 3 focus students, one thing you should do is don't jumble everything together. Build a nice tight paragraph that talks about the whole class. And then build 3 more paragraphs that talks about each of the 3 focus students. And I'll talk more about that as we start to break down the step 3. And the last part of the rubric, the candidate cites evidence from step 1 and step 2 to support their reflection and analysis. So in order to reflect, you have to go back and look at step 1, look at step 2, and then reflect based on that and give evidence from step 1 and step 2. And then we'll talk about that as we go. So that's your rubric, okay? And that's pretty clear and pretty laid out. They're asking you to reflect. And with this, you're going to be submitting in step 3, 3 pages, okay? There's a template that CTC has for you. You just load all the information to the template. What you could do is go on and write this out and do it single space. And then you just sort of cut and paste and drop the information into the template. But you're going to be writing 3 pages, okay? And there's no more than 3 pages. So anything over 3 won't be counted. So, you know, you can do 1, you can do 2. However, I recommend you do 3 written pages for CTC. And that's a nice bite-sized process. So this step 3, reflect on what you learned, okay? So the directions, respond to the following prompts right below, and reflect on what you learned on the template provided. So number 1, and there's 1, A and B, then there's 2, 3, and 4. And then even before I get into 1, I'll tell you that step 1 is all about a lesson plan, okay? So you're going to be referring back to your lesson plan when you reflect in step 1, okay? And step 2 is all about your teaching that shows up in your videos, okay? And now keep in mind, also remember that when you did your videos for CTC, you dropped in annotations that were time-stamped, okay? So when you start to reflect, use those annotations to help build step 3. Is that clear? And go back to step 1. It's all about a lesson plan. So you're going to be reflecting on your lesson plan and use examples, evidence from your lesson plan to talk about those, to make up those 3 pages in step 3. And if you're not going back and reflecting on your lesson plan, and I mean examples, you know, take what you have written there and say, for example, right here, I wrote blah, 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 and this, then you're doing it wrong. So use your lesson plan to reflect and show evidence from the lesson plan. And on your videos, use your videos in step 2, okay, to help you reflect in step 3. And use your annotations. Use them as quoted information to help support whatever you say and how you start to build and respond and respond to these questions in step 3. Is that clear, everyone? So do not just reflect off your head and not use any evidence from step 1, the lesson plan, and step 2, the videos and the annotations. The annotations are going to be your lifeline for reflecting in step 2, okay? So the first question reads, how did getting to know your students' assets and learning needs, A, support the affirmation and validation of students' cultural and linguistic backgrounds? Okay. Number B, and I'll read number 1 and then I'll add the B in. How did getting to know your students' assets and learning needs allow students to access and engage with the literacy or mathematic context? Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to, what page in the document are we looking at? I'm a little lost.
Right now, we're in the performance assessment guide. We're on step 3, reflect, and mine is showing that's page 18, all right? Okay? All right, good. So, with number 1, it's all about how do you believe your lesson was improved, made use of, did right by your students, because you spent time getting to know who your students were and what they brought to the learning. Okay? This is all about how was it, did it make any sense for you to know your students' assets? Did that help at all? Did that help your lesson become stronger, more effective? Is it beneficial to know about your students? Did knowing their assets help you shape your lesson plan? Did knowing their assets and their needs, did that help you shape, or did it affect the way you taught and engaged with them as you administered the lesson? So what CTC wants to know is it worth you learning about your students? And once you do learn about your students, does it help in any way make the lesson more effective, stronger, easier to understand, more pliable, more useful, and more beneficial for your students? Okay? And as you start to respond to that, number 1, and that part A and part B, use the lesson plan. Use that to kind of, and then start blending, my students' assets, blah, 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 and just sort of blend that together and talk comprehensively and share with the reader about how getting to know your students' assets and learnings supported the affirmation and validation of students' culture and linguistic backgrounds, and getting to know your students' assets and learning needs allows students to access and engage with the literacy or mathematic content. Did getting to know them help you prepare better so that the students could connect better and then really take in the lesson? All right, that's number 1. And then number 2, and this is very short, guys. This is not a big thing. It's very short. And then number 2, how effective was your instructional approach in supporting learning for the students, learning for the whole class, and for each of the 3 focus students to achieve the content-specific learning goals? And I'm going to read that again. How effective was your instructional approach in supporting learning for the whole class and for each of the 3 focus students to achieve the content-specific goals? Okay, so when you start to address and respond to number 2, like I was saying earlier, don't just start talking and jumble all that together. First, talk about the whole class and give some evidence, and then talk about each of your 3 students, one by one. Don't write like, oh, all of my 3 of my students did really well, and don't do that. Talk about the first student, express what that student is all about. Then your second student, express what that one is about. And then number 3, and then start to break it down a little bit, and then weave in some evidence to help support whatever position you're saying and how you respond to that question. Does everyone understand that? Does that make sense to you? I need one yes man. Somebody give me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
There you go. I appreciate that. Thanks, Zach. You're my yes man today. All right.
Here's my thumb.
There you go, Brendan. You got it, brother. Okay. So I'm going to keep going down to 3 and then down to 4. And then I'm going to stop and entertain any questions on step 3. And remember, with step 3, they're asking you to reflect. Okay? You built a lesson plan in step 1, you implemented it in step 2, and now let's do some reflecting. Was step 1 and step 2 worth it? Did it help in any way? Did it make sense? Did knowing the students, did it help move things forward? Okay. And now, question number 3 on reflect that you are going to be unpacking. How effective was your instructional approach in supporting learning for at least one English learner to achieve the ELD goals? Okay, so just go back and how was your instructional approach? How was it overall in supporting learning for an English learner? Okay, did your lesson plan work? Did knowing about that student help? How did that help that student achieve the ELD goals? Okay. What CTC wants to know here is, did your lesson plan, did it work? Was it so organized? Was it so structured enough to help move that student forward? And did knowing about the student also help facilitate that student achieving the ELD goals? All right. And again, be specific, lay out the information clearly so the individual, the reader, knows you're talking about this English learner. Be very specific, and then find some evidence to back that up, and you're good to go. Okay. Number 4. This is the last one. In the lesson, did you need to incorporate specific in-the-moment instructional adaptations? So they're asking, did you have to take a quick U-turn? Did you have to step back a little bit? Did you have to slip something in? That's what adaptation is all about. In the lesson, did you need to incorporate specific in the moment, okay, instructional adaptations for the whole class and the 3 focus students to support them to achieve the learning goals? Why or why not? Now with this one, with number 4, what CTC wants you to do here, they want you to talk about any adjustments, show them that that you're still learning as a teacher, And when things happen, you're able to pivot. You're able to make some adjustments. If something didn't go well, it's okay. Talk about it and explain it out and just show them that you can be flexible. Show them that you have the ability to adapt to things that are happening right now and right in front of you. And all of you do this already. This is nothing new. You're not trying to create anything new. Just talk about how it is when you're in class and you're teaching a lesson and you got something all set up and then something shifts and you got to make a change. CDC wants to know that you can be adaptable, that you can take a quick pivot backwards, that you can be flexible, and you can still move the lesson forward. Okay? Now, when you do this, if something happened with the whole class group, talk specifically about the whole class. And if something happened with 1, 2, or all of your 3 focus students, then talk about that separately also. Don't jumble all this together. Does that make sense to you? Just kind of say, oh, you know, when I was conducting the whole class, there was a little extra noise or someone blah, 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 or whatever, and then talk about how you adjusted. Thanks, Lacey. And how you made sense of it and you were able to adapt and to continue moving forward. All right? That's that. Use, and as you start to break down 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I got to be clear on this, show evidence. That's where your success is going to be. Show evidence from step 1, from the lesson plan, and everything that you talked about in there. Show evidence from step 2. Use the annotations. That's how you're going to show evidence from step 2. Use the annotations, okay? You can just say, hey, you know, if you look at 3.4, that's going to show you where there was something going on in class and that's a win right there. All right? With this reflect, all they want are 3 pages. And if you keep everything separate, whole class, 3 students, then you won't have any trouble achieving and building these 3 pages. And hey, use as much evidence as you can from step 1 and from step 2. Use your annotations, okay? And this will be a piece of cheesecake sliced up nicely, all right? And I'm gonna read the little call out box they have here. It reads, and this is what I've been saying, but I wanna just stick it to you. Be sure to cite evidence from your submissions in step 1 and I'm gonna skip the or, and step 2, okay? For each of these prompts that they have in front of you. And that's it for step 3, reflect. Now I'm gonna stop talking for a minute, give you time to pause and ask if there are any questions. Was I clear enough? Did I go too fast? Tell me what your thoughts are about step 3, reflect. Brendan, how are you doing, brother? Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's actually going pretty good. Just for, I think for question 2 and 3, like how effective was your instructional support, your instructional approach? How do you make sure to check how effective your approach was? Like, do you just watch by how the students complete any assessments you assign, or like how they're taking in the lesson? Like, how do we check for how effective our instructional approach was?
You know what, as an instructor, you can always engage how your students are listening. Sometimes you can be in a classroom and you can talk about your instructional approach. And hey, man, you look around, the kids are all talking and playing because you're doing something wrong. So you can say, if you look at the video, you'll see that with my instructional approach, the students are engaged, they're listening, they're raising their hands, they're asking questions. That's how you're going to start to talk about your instructional approach. Did the whole class, or did these focus students, were they able to connect and feel like they were actually part of a classroom with an effective instructor who was talking slow enough, using perfect examples, using all the tools around. So you'll be able to do that pretty much looking at your video and then sharing that information with the CTC person. Does that make sense for you, Brendan?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for your voice. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Any other questions for step 3, reflect? And before I be so gallant to just flip the pages, I'm going to do a little informal assessment. And then I'm going to ask anybody, help me out with this. Did I explain this well enough? Are you able to bite into it? Does it make sense to you? Somebody give me some verbal feedback to help me feel good about myself, because I'm feeling pretty low these days.
You did a good job, Dr. Robinson. I feel pretty confident in understanding that there's a template that we have to fill out, and you did a good job explaining what the templates actually mean when they describe it.
That's my man, Lacey. Shoot, Lacey, they should make copies of you and drop you all over the country, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate your voice. All right, so let's go over and let's take a look at, I hate to move over so fast, but this is it for step 3. And the key for success in step 3 is citing evidence and separating everything out. Do not jumble. Separate it out, and then you're golden. You're good to go. All right. So let's take a little swig of water, and then let's go over to step 4, apply. And then what I'm going to do with this, again, with step 4, apply, and step 4 is on page 19. And I'm going to first read the essential question. And then I'm going to read level 3 of the rubric to show exactly what you should be sticking in order to get that passing mark. And then I'm going to let you know what the evidence they want you to submit, okay? So here's the essential question for step 4. It reads, how will the candidate apply what they have learned in cycle 1, citing evidence from step 1, 2, and or 3? And I definitely go and or. I don't want to, I think you're going to be really looking at step 1 and step 2, because step 3 is going to be kind of like already a hodgepodge of step 1 and step 2, okay? So how will the candidate apply what they learned from cycle 1, citing evidence from step 1 and 2 about students learning to strengthen and extend students' understanding of content and academic language development, and determine next steps for instructions? Okay, so they're going to ask you again, how will the candidate apply what they've learned in cycle 1 about students learning? So that means you got to talk about what you've, what did you see? What did you notice about your students learning? Okay, to strengthen and extend the students' understanding of context and academic language development, and determine next steps about instructions. Okay, so how are you going to take everything that you learned about your students and then get them ready for the next steps in instruction. And here is the level 3 under the rubric. The candidate applies what they have learned in cycle 1 to describe future instructions that will strengthen and extend students' deep learning about content and academic language development. So when we talk about deep learning, we're talking about higher learning, okay? Candidate describes next steps for instructions that are clearly planned to extend learning of content. Next steps connected to what was learned about students in the lesson. Last part, the candidate cites evidence from steps 1 and 2 and or 3 to support their decisions about next steps for content learning. And I'm going to read that second part of level 3 again. The candidate describes next steps of instructions that are clearly planned to extend learning of content. Next steps are connected to what was learned about students in this lesson. So everything they're saying here is when you talk about next steps, your next steps are all a direct result of what you learned about your students and how they performed earlier, okay? So the cool thing about this one is you have a choice. You can either do a written narrative with no more than 3 pages, or you can do a 5-minute video. So you can do up to 5 minutes. So I recommend you do 5 minutes, but no more. Don't do a penny over. You go over, none of it is going to be used, okay? So you can do a video, or you can write a 3-page paper responding to number 4, okay? Well, to step 4. Is everyone with me so far? Is this making sense? Okay, let me just see maybe some thumbs up. How many of you are thinking, even before hearing what step 4 has in it, how many of you thinking I'm gonna do a 5-minute video, or how many of you thinking I may do a 5-page paper? So if you're gonna do a 5-page paper, a 3-page paper, give me thumbs down. If you're gonna do a video, give me thumbs up.
Quentin, I have a quick question.
Talk to me, brother Anthony. How are you doing, man?
Good. How are you? How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, okay, so hold on. So thanks for those thumbs. I appreciate it. I just kind of wanted to get a little gauge. Thank you, brother. And thanks for you who added in the text also. Brother Anthony, talk to me.
Can this, if we're to do the video, can that be edited or no?
No.
No.
No, no. You can't edit any of your videos. If you do, they have this editing thing, man. They'll just toss it out. They won't even look at it.
So
Yeah.
even an edited reflection video will be tossed out.
Yeah, man. So no editing. You just do that. You set your camera set it up, and then you're watching the clock or whatever, and you go, and in 5 minutes, you turn it off, and then you load it up. As simple as that. Okay. Thank you, brother.
Thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, cool. And here's the next thing, and I see 2 hands. So I'm gonna say this one thing, and I'll go to Simon, and I'll go to Carlito. So when you, if you decide to do the video, I recommend that you put yourself some nice notes together and totally read from the notes. or get yourself these absolute clear talking points. Don't go cold turkey. Take a look at what they're asking you to do, and then give yourself some notes, and then give yourself, hit the start button, 5 minutes, hit all those points, and shut it off. All right. Brother Simon, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. On the topic of the video, I'm looking at the performance assessment guide on step 4 in the first green box on that page. It says, if you choose to respond with a video recording, you may start and stop the camera as needed. That seems to contradict what you're saying. Are you suggesting that we just do 5 minutes beginning to end, or are you saying that we must?
You can stop it, but you can't edit it. I mean, and I would recommend, why would you, I mean, you can stop and start, but what good is that? I would say, and that's why I'm trying to say, when you do decide to do the 5-minute video, what you should do is have notes in front of you. You should have done a little rehearsing, and then hit start and let it run for 5 minutes, and then shut it off and walk away from it. I mean, the starting and stopping, and I find that to be troublesome. So what are your thoughts, Simon?
For my process, I wouldn't be opposed to starting and stopping, but I understand why you might be against it. So I just wanted to know if it was a suggestion, or like you're saying, like, do not do that at all. But I think I'll take what you said and reconsider.
Okay, all right. And Simon, thank you for your voice, and thank you for your question, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Carlito, talk to me. How are you today?
Good, and yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, so my question is in regards for the templates for step 3 and 4, because on the emails that you have sent to us, I haven't been able to find the templates for step 3 and 4 for cycle 1.
You don't have any templates?
I have templates for step 1, all the parts of step 1. All I'm missing is templates for step 3 and step 4.
Okay, I will make sure that I get those loaded up for you all, and I'll have it on there, right away, directly. Okay, I'll get those sample templates up there for you. And thank you for that, Carlos. Okay, Nina, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm wondering, so this may be arbitrary kind of, but do you think there's a preference for either adding, I know that we've been writing a lot. Do you think it would be beneficial to have a video, or does it not matter really?
No, it doesn't matter. It comes around to your comfort level. That's exactly what it comes to. That's all it is. So if you do a video, it's neither here nor there. And if you decide to do the writing of the 3 pages, it's neither here nor there. It's not going to change. They're going to say, oh, she did a video, she get more. Nah, it's just you finding your comfort level. That's why I was kind of interested to see who would do a video and who would do the 3 pages. And it's all about you. That's what it's about. Okay, how you feel. All right. And then it goes back to, Simon's response also. It's about, do you turn the camera on and just do those 5 minutes and step away from it? Or do you do it and stop and do it and stop and do it and stop? I highly recommend that you, and that was a great question from Simon, but I highly recommend that you organize yourself, organize your notes, and then hit start, do your 5 minutes, and then walk away from it. So anyway, so let's go on, and thank you for your question, Nina. Let's go on and let's start to sort of, dissect 4 a little bit, and then, we can take some questions. So explain what your next steps for learning will be to advance your students' engagement with their lesson. And that's pretty clear. Explain what your next steps for learning will be to advance your students' engagement with the lesson, their content-specific learning, and their development of academic language, okay? Cite evidence from steps 1, 2, and/or 3. And then when you go through this, when it talks about their content specific learning and their development of academic language, don't jumble those two things together. If you're going to do the video, talk about content specific learning, and then take a second pause and say, now about their academic language, make it very clear for the listener and make it very clear for your reader, that you separate those two pieces out so they get it. All right. Don't mix them together so they have to fish through and try to understand what you're saying, or fish through and try to find out what you're writing about. Okay. So on number one, based on your planning, your teaching, assessing, and that's checking for understanding, and reflecting, do you need to plan to reteach any part of the lesson content? Explain why or why not. So you're going now, you may have one piece of something that didn't work well, or something that went really well, or everything was just an absolute success. Be ready to lay it out and explain it and clearly. So choose something to make, if you could choose something, how do I say this? If you talk about something that needs to be done, choose something to make it better, okay? Talk about the way you modeled something, how you set up the discussion, how you went about with the assessment, how did your closure go? How did you set out expectations for the lesson? How was your exit ticket? Whatever. Use stuff that has, been the key throughout this assessment, but give good reason and use evidence to back it up. If you say, hey man, there's no reason for me to have to reteach anything, talk about it, lay it out, hit some clean points, give examples, give evidence, support it, and just say, look, if you look in the video, you'll see again that my students are very engaged, or, just really use the evidence to support out whatever position you take. Is that clear? Okay. Trust me, use the evidence and go any route you want. And if you found something that wasn't good, that's beautiful. Just talk about it, lay it out, explain, give examples, and it's a win. CTC is here not looking to see that you're perfect. They want to see that you can recognize some things, and then you have the wherefore with to talk about it, and then, be able to clearly show examples of it and then move forward, okay? Number 2, when you teach this lesson again in the future, what would you do the same or differently to improve higher order thinking, deep learning about the content? So that means whatever you talked about in higher order thinking, those examples that you showed throughout 1 and 2, pull those up again. And if you say, hey man, if I taught this lesson again, I wouldn't do anything different because each of my students were really able to show, or you see what I'm saying? Bring it out, share it, and then give examples. Say, for example, if you look at blah, 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 blah in the videos, you will see, and I would be really charged to do this same thing again because it grabs the student's attention, it melts them into the lesson. that's how you want to sort of lay this out, okay? And if you go the other route, if you feel like, yeah, I could do something different, give examples, talk about it, and it's not hurtful or bad if you're critiquing yourself. It's a-okay, okay? Oh, and just make sure when you talk about to address higher order thinking. You know, write it in there somehow. Higher order thinking is, and my students were able to blah, blah, you know, use that and blend it and let them know that when you do the write-up or when you do the video talk, you know, just say, in terms of higher order thinking, and then just break it down from there. Because that the listener will know that we're talking about higher order thinking now, and the reader will know, okay, here's page 3 and in the middle of page 2, he's now talking about higher order thinking and, you know, his future and all that good stuff. All right. All right. Thumbs up. I'm going to move ahead to number 3. Number 3, if you were to develop and teach this lesson again, and this is what I have bolded out with my highlighters, what would you do the same or differently to develop your students' academic language? And again, if you're doing the 5-minute video, then now, bam, throw in your academic language in terms of academic language, and then start to talk it out for the listener. When you're writing, now talk about that academic language. What would you develop and teach? What would you do differently or the same? And if you're going to do something differently, show examples. You know, use a lesson. Find something in 1 and 2 that helps support what you're saying and give credence to what you're saying, whether it's good or bad, or whether you take the left or the right. Just make sure you find some examples to help support where you're going and the position that you're taking. Use some free talk, but then back it up with some evidence. All right? Very good. And then the last one, number 4. In the next context-specific lesson you plan for this group of students, explain how you would highlight or change the instruction to further affirm and validate your students' cultural and linguistic backgrounds. All right? So in the next content-specific lesson you plan for this same group of students, explain how you would do it even better, highlight or change the instructions to further affirm and validate your students' cultural and linguistic backgrounds. All right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop running my mouth for a minute, and I'm going to see if anyone wants to ask any questions, any thoughts. Oh, cool. Somebody dropped some things into, you guys are freaking awesome, man, into the chat. Okay, Molly, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Talk to me, Molly.
Yeah. So I had a question about the 3rd part of step 4. And you mentioned that we can give examples of things we would do differently. But then you also said to cite things from the lesson plan that we're using. Okay. So when we're giving examples of different things, is it okay that it's not related to what we've already mentioned?
If it's not related to what we've already mentioned, help me understand that question a little better. I'm not getting that.
So So is it okay to give completely different examples than the ones that we've given like in our lesson plan or things like that, like in our previous steps?
I think your examples should all come from, from lesson 1 and lesson 2. You haven't given them before and you're giving some new examples. That's what you're asking?
Yeah, because the question's saying if there's anything you would do differently.
Okay, yeah, it's okay to give different examples. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
That's right on point, Molly. Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Molly, for that question. I'm going to go with Ellie, and then I'm going to go with Brendan, okay? Ellie, how are you?
Hi, Dr. Robinson. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm doing well.
That's good. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain everything. I have a question about citing. So for steps 3 and 4, you've been talking about citing information from steps 1 and 2.
Correct. Citing evidence from 1 and 2. Okay. Yeah.
1 and 2, which makes sense to me. But my question kind of extends past this whole cycle 1. And can we pull information within our rationale when we're writing our rationale? Can we cite sources from like the UDL, from like things we've been learning about our class to support our classes in the EDSC courses? And can we cite like just like a regular paper? Would that be okay? Is that allowed? I haven't heard you talk about it unless I missed it or I haven't read anything. So what does that look like?
You know what? That would be okay. That's okay. But don't let those things overshadow you citing from step 1 and step 2. Because when you go back to the rubric, they keep, their whole thing is about you citing from step 1 and step 2. Now, if you choose to, throw some other things in there, that's fine, but don't let them overshadow step 1 and step 2. To be honest with you, CTC wants that to be the gist and the real meat of your citing, okay?
Okay.
Now, I wouldn't dare say, oh no, don't bring up any other sources. That would be irresponsible of me.
Yeah.
But I do want to reiterate that your real meat of citing should come from step 1 and step 2, since that is in the rubric and it's written in the call out, in the essential question as well. So we really want to, as we respond, we want to make sure that we do that. And trust me, there'll be a lot that you can cite from step 1 and step 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, but don't let it overshadow step 1 and step 2 being your key sources of citing and for examples, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Real quick, a sub question. If we do cite from an outside source, then would a work cited be appropriate, or do we, I don't know, like how would that work?
You're not going to be able to put, APA footnotes and all that. Just if you decide to go from outside source, I would put down, Taylor /2014. And I think that should be sufficient. When you do those 3 pages, you don't want to lose your writing space for citation. So I don't know, that's, find a way to get it done. That's the best way to put it. Just don't plagiarize, and then you can go from there. You'll be okay.
Oh, definitely. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. I have a kind of a follow-up question on that, if I could.
Okay, sure.
When you're mentioning,
no, go right ahead.
Sorry, cite from step 1, cite from 2, and cite from the videos. You're not talking about an official MLA citation. You just mean reference them, pull them in, describe, right?
Yeah, when you use your, you may have something in your lesson plan that you can say, for example, if you see here, I had this, next time I would do this differently and explain why. Or if you use your annotations, you can just put what you wrote there and say, this helps me, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't have to be APA official. They know that you're grabbing information from all over step 1 and you're grabbing information from step 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And I apologize. And thank you for that, Michelle. Appreciate your voice. I apologize to Nina and Brendan. Brandon, thanks for being patient. The floor is yours for a minute.
Of course. I think I only have a question for part 4 of step 4. Like when it says how you would highlight or change the instructions for validating a student's cultural and linguistic backgrounds, could that be like we could also plan to integrate culturally and linguistic? Like I'm trying to teach social studies, so could I try to implement maybe like if it's relevant, modern day or like anything I find from history that still adheres to the content standard, but also connects to the students' cultural and linguistic backgrounds?
Yeah, just whatever you decide to add, you know, talk about how that affirms and this extra new stuff, you know, affirms and validates them even more, which will bring them deeper into the lesson, excite them, and make them want to participate more and feel more engaged and more part of the lesson overall. Okay?
Okay, that seems simple to understand.
Okay, thank you, brother. Nina, thank you for being patient.
I actually had a follow-up question to what Ellie was asking. Is there a specific format that we should put these citations? For example, saying refer to step 1 or something, I don't know.
You mean, you know, when you talk, you could say, you know, I would say things like in step 1, blah, 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 blah. In step 2, in doing the video, I did, when I was, you know, in laying out my annotations, you make it clear to the reader, they know, because step 2 is all about videos. And step 1 is all about lesson plans and assessing your students and all that stuff. So, you know, I would say things like in step 1, you know, and then my lesson plan, because that lesson plan, step 1 is all about the lesson plan. And so they know, the reader will know that you're taking us right into step 1. And if you talk about, you know, in the video, in video clip 3, blah, 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 blah. And my annotation helps support this. If you look at the, you know, and just sort of talk it out and lay it out that way, and your reader will be able to follow you. Thank you. And thank you so for the questions. I appreciate those. How is everyone doing so far? Any questions, any concerns, any thoughts? Floor is yours.
Hey, Dr. Robinson, Zachary here again.
How you doing, brother?
I was gonna ask. So I know I'm not alone in this. I've only finished step 1.
Okay.
So moving into step 2, I mean, like realistically, how long will this all take us? You think, like, to finish step 2, step 3, and step 4?
Does anyone who has moved into step 2 and who has done your video so far, does anyone want to comment on that for Zach, for brother Zach? Nobody wants to. Okay, so, you know, Zach, you know, in terms of filming, it may take, I don't know, you may film for a day or a couple of days, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's that. And then once you have the film and you've sort of organized and structured everything out so you know what you're trying to grab, you know, in terms of those 3 clips, it doesn't take long to grab out those 3 clips. And then once you grab those 3 clips out, then you spend some time, and I highly recommend that you spend some time annotating before you drop the video into the CTC portal so that you can just do some cutting and pasting, okay?
Yeah.
And then, you know, that's step 3. I think you can do step 2, you know, we can say 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And then when you get into step 3 and step 4, then now what you're doing, Zachary, is you're writing.
Yeah.
You know, you're writing a 3-page report, so to speak, for step 3. And then when you move into step 4, you're either writing a 3-page report or you are doing a 5-minute video. And you don't have to do, you're doing a 5-minute video. That's it.
Yeah.
And so the planning, I think, Brother Zachary, you're in a good place in terms of time if you're already knocked out step 1.
Perfect. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I was, like you said, it's not very for everybody, but I just wanted to kind of, for my classmates as well, to kind of relax their minds, let them know, this is, from what it sounds like, I just wanted to confirm with you. It seems like we're looking at maybe like a week, maybe 2-week process if we really get on top of it.
I would say yes to that. And you can throw a bonus week in there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we have quite a bit of time. I mean, time is ticking away rather rapidly. However, we still have weeks ahead of us. And I see this as I'm reading this and going through my breakdown, I'm thinking, wow, this is doable. You sit down and you squeeze out these 3-page papers and just really sort of keep things in these paragraph chunks or responding to certain things. And really, it's all about you sharing what you've learned. You take a look at your videos again, think about, all the information in step 1, and you're now in a place to start articulating and sharing this information out for other people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your help.
Thank you, brother. Are there any other questions, Nina?
Yeah, kind of also going off what Zachary was saying. I think for me, step 3 and 4 actually after today feel a lot easier than, I think step 2 is kind of the big hurdle for me, where I did step 1, but step 2 is kind of I don't even know how to approach, how do I know what's a good lesson, or like trying to figure out, okay, these are the things. So I think maybe other people are feeling the same way, that step 3 and 4 are actually seem very easy once it's almost like the dessert after.
Exactly.
Like the chunk of the.
And you could almost look at it as 3 and 4 are like winding down and stepping away from it. And I find them to be very, very doable. And and then I see your hand, Snyder. If you decide to do when you go to step 4 and you decide to do the 5-minute video, it's I'll say this again. I highly recommend that you organize your notes so that you start that machine and you run through 5 minutes and you hit all these points and you don't jumble your conversation and convolute it. So when you get ready to go and to start talking about higher order thinking, you say, now with higher order thinking, I believe that blah, 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 blah. And when you talk about, context with learning and developing academic language, you lay those things out, hit those points, move in and move out. Okay. Snyder, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for taking my question.
Oh, yeah.
Does the lesson plan for step 1 have to match the video in step 2?
No, it doesn't have to match. But just like, why not use it? But no, it doesn't have to match. No, it doesn't.
But it's recommended.
It's not recommended. It's about you deciding how you want to do it. It's not recommended at all.
Okay.
Yeah. This is, and just like, and I'll keep going back to Simon, just like when Simon was saying, you can break. And then I say, run a straight video through, but it's all about where you feel your level of comfort.
Okay.
And then again, yes, Snyder. And then again, whether you do a video or 3 pagers, it's again where you feel your level of comfort. If I were to do it for me, and this is just individually me, I write better, and I would just do the 3 pages because that's where I find my strength. So
okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I have for you in terms of step 3 and step 4. Savannah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I was just wondering if you have any idea about the registration deadline. I know that we can submit by November 18th, according to the website, but I don't know if there's a certain amount of time we have to register prior to that date.
Oh, you know what? You can register, you can pop up, you can register tomorrow. And once you register, you have a year to shove information in there before that goes to sleep.
Okay, but can we register like up until the submission date?
Yeah, you can register on the submission date. Yeah, you can register on the submission date. Yes, you sure can.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that question.
Real quick.
Yeah, talk to me, brother.
All right, yeah. Yeah, I still haven't done a placement yet, so it's like, you know, I haven't been able to get like focus students or anything like that. I know like the program is still working on getting people's placements, but like if I'm not able to get one to where I can officially work on the, you know, on the CalTPA cycle 1, have it due and submitted by November 18th, is it okay if like I just try to get it done as soon as I can, as long as it's just turned in like before I complete cycle 2?
You are certainly right, Daddy-O. You can do it in December. You certainly can. I loaded that data in there so that we as a family and as a team can, we can stay focused and keep this as a priority so that we get it done.
Right.
All right.
I guess I just wanted to make sure so that once I do start, then that will be one of my main focuses other than the other assignments I might have in the EDSC classes.
Okay, very good. Brother Christopher, you're going to walk us out of this. How are you doing? Yeah. You know what? You don't even. So there's some people who are. I teach a class in CalTPA 2, and they haven't finished one yet. The thing is, you don't want to be in that situation. You know, that's just my opinion. You want to be at 2 with one behind you, completely out of your purview. You want to be done. It just makes life so much easier and so much more. You can comprehend and bite into cycle 2 much better if cycle 1 is done. Well, you know what, and if you don't get it done, Brother Christopher, then nobody's gonna hold a gun to your head or anything. But my recommendation is try to get 1 done before you jump into 2. Or if not, then you can not do 1 and do 2 and then do 1 later. It's up to you. Yes, it is very flexible, Brother Christopher. Okay. All right. Thanks for your question, man. All right, folks. That's it. Have a great weekend. Do something fun. Go see James Bond. That was a freaking good movie, by the way.
Should also see Halloween Kills.
I don't know if I want to push killing. Well, Bond just does a lot of killing. Anyway, folks, do something fun for yourself. And I will send you an email for our next meet, and just, it'll just be like a check-in, see how people are doing, and to ask any specific questions about 1, 2, 3, 4. But other than that, that's it, folks. Have a great weekend, and thank you so much for giving me your time on this busy Friday, okay?
Thank you.